You were the chosen one! It was said that you would bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! I hate you! You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
Oh, Netmarble. We need to have a heart-to-heart here. 3.0, if you haven't already noticed, based upon the community's reaction, is so bad. So wrong in so many ways. And I'm not the type of person to like overreact and, scream the sky is falling. I'm a pretty logical and stats driven person, like data. And so that's what I did, is basically I released a survey for the community, and you guys might have already seen the open letter that I posted with this information. But I just want to kind of talk about that and this survey real fast, because basically what I did is I posted a survey on Discord and the subreddit asking players these 9 statements right here. And basically I just asked players if they disagreed or agreed with these things, and then I just combined the strongly disagree and disagree together and the agree and strongly agree together, and I got these percentages. So this is the percentage of players basically that disagree or agree with the statements of the players that filled that out. So there was 451 players that filled it out, and first and foremost, thank you for everyone. This was by far the most popular survey of any of the ones I've ever done. And I imagine that those 451 players are probably hardcore players, or at least core players. And what I mean by that is they're players that not only did they care enough to fill out the survey, but they care enough to be on the subreddit or the Discord communities. They're probably in the guild. They're above. They're not new players, I would imagine, or they're above your typical player within the game. And so 451 players is a pretty good sample size for that specific demographic within the game. And let's just go through the responses here. Netmarble is good at communicating with the community. Nearly 70% disagree with that statement, 5% agreed. Netmarble has always kind of really been bad at this. They communicate to us through Mobirum with their announcements there, but mostly it's just like for updates. There's a few of us that are in the influencer Discord for the beta testers, and honestly, we get frequent communications when like an update comes out, but a lot of times it's just as dead and hard to get a response there than it is on Mobirum. And maybe that's partially due to, I think they have different offices, and like one in the US, one in the Philippines, one in Korea. I think the main Netmarble headquarters is in Korea. And so, I'm sure that's difficult to create not only international boundaries, but time zone and language barriers there between the different divisions. But it's just they're not good at communicating information to the community. The next statement, Netmarble discovers and resolves bugs quickly. 70% disagree with that, 6.4% agree. So that's pretty bad as well. And I'll tell you right now, the best way to improve this is on Mobirum to create a pinned thread which has a list of verified bugs, and then allow players to submit bug reports through the game in an easy, somewhere like in the settings or whatever. Create a simple little bug submission form, and once you verify that a bug exists, add it to the list, and then put a status next to it. So if you're, here's a good example. The rematch feature that was introduced to the game has never worked, at least not in the US. I think it might work in Korea, but it doesn't work for like anyone else. It freezes the game, it locks it up, makes you force quit it. And that rematch feature has never worked. So that, as far as I know, they haven't even acknowledged that. But all of these verified, repeatable bugs should be in a list somewhere, and then a status next to them. So if they're being looked into, if they're trying to be identified, trying to, need to be repeatable, things like that, add them to the list and put the status. And even better is if you could give like a deadline or a date. It's going to be being worked on, should be fixed next patch. And I work with developers and programmers. I understand it's not always feasible, or it's not always smart to give a deadline, because if you miss that deadline, it can create a lot of resentment from your user base. But at least acknowledgement is like, that's fundamental. And this goes right along with communication. Is like, some things, I feel like communication and this acknowledgement of a bug and is part of this communication is like one of the biggest factors, in my opinion, of the success of a game. The third statement here, the 3.0 update made the game more balanced. Nearly 83% disagreed, 5.3% agree. That's a really skewed thing. And here's the problem. The game was already unbalanced. I did a survey a few months ago, and nearly 70% of players said that the game was unbalanced. So this has only made it worse. 3.0 made the balance worse, and the game was already horribly balanced. And then 3.0 took any balance that was left, and it shredded it up and threw it out the window. Like, there's no balance in this game anymore on any front. The 3.0 update made the matchmaking better. 72% said they disagree. 9.5% said they agree. Now, hopefully these numbers approach each other the longer over time. I've had this survey out since the first day it was out, I think. And hopefully these numbers kind of grow closer together as players spread out between the new tiers. But so far it hasn't been the case. Even with players, all the grinders getting into Grand Khyber, it's still a lot of players in Khyber or below are still running into the same issues with matchmaking. And the players in Grand Khyber are running into a lot of extremely long queues, which is just as bad. I mean, I saw some of the influencers, content creators, saying they had 20 to 40 minute queues. How are you supposed to create content or stream a game if your audience has to wait 20 minutes in between to watch a 3-minute match? It's crazy. The 3.0 update made the free-to-play versus pay-to-play balance better. So spending versus non-spending. This is the biggest and most skewed result in the survey. 85% say they disagree with that. 3.7% say they agree. Now, 3.0 is no question catered towards spenders. Everything in it, perks, data cards, the card level progression system, the credit crunch, everything benefits spenders. And I'm a spender myself, and I hate that. Like, I hate it because I'm aware of the importance of the symbiotic relationship with free-to-play and pay-to-play players. I feel sufficiently rewarded for playing the game daily. 66% disagree, so about 2/3 of the audience. 18% agree, so about 1/5 there. That's better than the previous results. So some people are feeling rewarded. I saw some people on Reddit saying that they don't like the new the victory reward system. The victory reward system, if you actually look at it mathematically, is superior to the victory pack system. And so I think that's maybe why this is a little bit, but still, there's not enough sources for credits with the huge credit crunch. And it's, someone's argument that, it does feel more of a grind. Previously, you probably didn't need as many wins to get the rewards as you do now. Like, now you need 17 to max out your rewards. Previously, depending on what victory packs you were getting, you maybe only need 5 or 6 per day. But even if you only got 5 or 6 wins, the victory rewards now should be about equivalent to what bronze and silver packs you would have gotten previously. It's not quite as identical because it doesn't work exactly like that. It's still a little bit luck-based, but I enjoy the new content that was included with 3.9 or 3.0. 49% disagree with that, 30% agree. This is the most positive news in the survey, and that's still half of players disagree with the 3.0 content in being enjoyable. 30% agree though, so almost a third, which is good news. And I think that this number would be far more positive if it was implemented. The content itself is not the issue, I don't think. It's how it was implemented. It was what advantages were given. It was how it went about, I think, is the issue. And here's these final 2 questions or 2 statements here. Overall, the 3.0 update has made the game more enjoyable for me. And the last one, I agree with the direction Netmarble is taking this game and will continue to play and support it if this direction continues. So 73% and 75% nearly disagree with these 2 statements. 10% and 9% agree. So this is really the ultimate question right here. Is, are you happy with it? And are you going to continue playing the game and supporting the game in the future? And as you can see here, and as you can tell by the community outcry, the answer is no. You know, players are quitting at alarming rates, and people are frustrated and discouraged, and it's really bad for the game, in my opinion. I wrote this. I wrote this open letter to Netmarble on Reddit. I'll post a link to it in the description and the comments. But I wanted to kind of go over this, and you know, if that's all you came for was the survey results, then that's fine. But Netmarble, I'm going to send this to Netmarble. Hopefully they watch it, or hopefully they at least read the open letter, because I feel like these things need to be said. Basically, I asked for feedback in the survey, and I got a ton of responses. So I gathered all of that feedback and all of the feedback from my previous forums and all of my experience playing the game. I mean, I've played it since literally the very first limited beta that was there since it came out. I've been playing. I've been extremely involved with the community and the Reddit and Discord at different times. But like I've been here and I've seen the different criticisms and feedback and suggestions over time, and I've tried to accumulate all of that and narrow it down to the core issues and then propose some possible solutions to Netmarble on how to fix this. So let's go over those. Basically, I identified the 2 core issues of the game being game balance and matchmaking. Out of the thousands of suggestions and things over time, almost all frustrations stem from these 2 problems. And game balance encompasses a ton of things, right? Like balance between light and dark, balance between eras, between leaders, new and old cards, spending and non-spending. And I literally feel like there's only 2 possible reasons why the balance could have gotten to this point. That it is this horrible. Like, it is literally awful. The balance, there is no balance in the game right now. And the first reason is that the employees at Netmarble who balance the game are incompetent and have no understanding of the game from a competitive standpoint. Now, I know that's pretty harsh, and I apologize if someone at Netmarble that does balances happens to see this. I understand that I don't know the dynamic within Netmarble, or how many teams are working, how many people are working on the balancing for this game, or if they work on a bunch of other different games, or to them it's just their job, and they're probably just trying to do whatever they're trying to do, they're just trying to get by and make a living for themselves. All I'm saying is that there's been countless examples of changes which fundamentally don't make any sense. Like they're not balance changes which ever needed to make sense. And also, because of their explanation, like on Mobirum, it's clear that the people that are balancing aren't understanding the game. Okay. And from, at least from a competitive standpoint, if that's not the reason why the game's in such a horrible state, the only other reason I can come up with is that the horrible balance is an intentional monetization method. Basically, Netmarble is releasing broken leaders, and then they're allowing you to buy packs on them to encourage players to spend money. Now, this is not, it's not actually a bad thing, okay? To a certain extent. What I mean by that is most games, when they release new characters or units, they make those units interesting, like a slightly better in some ways, to encourage players to play them, get to know, introduce them, potentially shift the meta, potentially just change things up and encourage spending, etc. That's not a bad thing. It's good. But if it's too much, if it like drastically dictates change within the game and completely makes or destroys metas, it's not good. And if they're intentionally doing this, okay, it's extremely narrow-minded. It's extremely narrow-minded, and it's a short-term train of thought. You're basically trying to squeeze and milk as much money out of this while, by releasing all these broken things, and then milk it for all it's worth. But in the long run, players are going to quit in record numbers because we're fed up with experiencing these horribly, unfair matchmaking and game balance. And there's certain things that make me think it's not a monetization method. Let me give you the best example I can. Octu Luke and Snoke were released at the same time, okay? They are both arguably the most broken leaders that have ever been introduced to the game. You could maybe put a case in for like Cassian at release because he had 14 range, and he added range to every, not only the organic units, back then he buffed the tanks, he buffed everything in the game. And so you can, and then Gigaran came out, and Gigaran was broken at release. And so it was like Cassian was really stupid broken. But, Octu Luke and Snoke were both extremely broken when released. And so, you can see, okay, well, maybe they did that intentionally to monetize the game, encourage you just to buy the packs. But the very first update after, they nerfed Octu Luke. They increased the cooldown on his mirror image. And then I think they nerfed him one more time in between 3.0, but I know they also nerfed him in 3.0, and they increased the percentage of life that he loses per second on his ability again, okay? So at least 2 tweaks on Octu, maybe 3, nerfing. So they understood that Octu Luke was broken or needed to be adjusted, and they toned him down. They've done that with plenty of leaders. Okay, so what? Snoke, meanwhile, Snoke has missed, what, 4? Is this 4 balance updates by now that Snoke has snuck through? Not only untouched, but Snoke has actually become better. Like, what? You gave him perks which increase his stun duration, increase his silent duration, lower his cooldown on his special. Like, this is the type of stuff that, if it was an intentional monetization method, why nerf Octu? Why not keep them both broken? Like, it's so bad that I literally have this like conspiracy theory that there's a developer at Netmarble who's one of the people in charge with balancing, and he has like a level 6 or 7 Snoke, and he mains Snoke. He's like, oh yeah, guys, don't worry about Snoke. He's perfectly balanced. I'll handle the balancing on Snoke. It's fine. And he's just, he's over here. It's like, Snoke's counterplay is what? Like he's supposed, his vulnerability is that he doesn't have a sprint, right? He's supposed to be vulnerable to aggression and up close quarters combat, but it doesn't work out like that. It doesn't work out like that at all. Because you aggress on Snoke and he stuns you right away, okay? And as soon as you come out of the stun, if you go back on him being aggressive on him, he's going to use his like 400% damage skill, not only push you back, but clear your entire push, whatever you have coming behind you. He's going to push all that back, silence you so you can't run away. He's going to attack you from his super long range where you can't do anything except for trying to either walk away or walk towards him. And by the time you're unsilenced and able to sprint again and be aggressive, he's going to stun you again. And this isn't even mentioning the players that run Snoke with stun or energy pike or whatever, and they stun or snare you and sit there and auto you while you're in the pike trap and can't do anything. Like, I get so emotionally frustrated with this concept because, like, at a fundamental level, it's such a dumb character. I like that, his double tap was exchanged for a sprint, or he doesn't do a dash or a sprint. That's cool. It was unique thinking of this scenario, but it's the way that he's set up is dumb. And then to make him worse with his era bonuses and his perks, make him stronger. It's this type of stuff that just like, who is in charge of this? Who is nerfing Ray Shield? It's stuff like when you guys change Dewback to make him go straight to turret. You guys, you're proving that you don't understand the game from the competitive level. That was never the problem with Dewback. The problem was with Ray. Matchmaking deals with two issues, speed and fairness. They oppose each other. If you try and improve the speed of matchmaking, it makes the fairness worse. If you try and improve the fairness, it makes the speed worse, okay? There, you have to balance them. It's a delicate balance. I think I have a few solutions which might improve it, but overall the best solution for matchmaking is just increasing the players, and that doesn't happen until your game's fun and balanced and enjoyable. All right, propose solutions to improving game balance. First solution, take the stick out of your ass and have someone competent balance the game. Look, if there's no developers who intimately understand the competitive side of the game, hire someone who does. Or message me and I will do it for you. That's what it says here. I've offered this in the past. I still offer it. I will do this for free. Hell, in the past I've even offered to do it and pay you guys for it. Like, seriously, just give me a translator so I can work with the Korean developers. Give me one balance update to prove myself. Like, I promise you, it will be the most widely praised and accepted balance update that has ever been released on the game, assuming that they will actually implement the updates that I suggest. And if that doesn't happen, you can never talk to me again. You can remove me from the beta tester influencer program. Like, I don't care, because I'm that confident that I would be able to achieve a incredibly significant improvement over what is currently in the game. On the other hand, if this horrible balance is intentional and it's a monetization tactic, honestly, it's going to ruin the game in the long run, and you deserve this. You deserve the mass abandonment of players quitting, the negative reviews. You deserve this because it's a dumb short-term strategy. Think long-term, balance and fix the game. Second suggestion, balance from the top down. This is just how most competitive games function. They use data from pros or competitive players, and they balance from the top down. If you do that, because the top players in the game, the reason why metas develop is because of experimentation, and typically the top players in the game play a lot. They develop and see which strategies work or don't work, and then they develop these metas which you use for your balance data. And I know Netmarble has access to like all this raw data, so if they take, and I'm not saying take the top players on 1v1 ranked, I'm literally saying take the players with the best win percentage that most often overcome level advantage, see what they're using, see why they're using it. I have plenty of suggestions on how you can extract the data you need to balance from the top down. In fact, probably the best way is just to use community tournaments, because they're literally players with equalized card levels using the best things in the game. Suggestion 3, give everyone the same set of tools to work with. Now this might be an interesting one for a lot of people to understand, but basically I'm suggesting get rid of factions. So get rid of light versus dark, get rid of light and dark altogether, get rid of eras, allow mirror matchups, allow players to select from any cards that they want, mix and match. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting this is because if you look at other games, Clash Royale, Hearthstone, Mobile Legends, Vainglory, Overwatch, pretty much any competitive game ever, they always allow you to pick from the entire selection of cards or characters or weapons or whatever, and it has to be this way because balance becomes exponentially harder to accomplish without that. I mean, even games like, let's say, StarCraft, which I would argue is one of the hardest games ever to effectively balance, has mirror matchups. And so if you do have, a faction which is stronger, you could just do a mirror matchup there. Fourth suggestion, keep data cards, but make the data card bonuses based on the data cards you equip, not your era. Kind of like how sets work in Diablo. Basically, the more data cards you equip related to a specific type of unit, the more bonuses you get for that. Okay? So let's say that you equip an offensive, defensive, and support data card, which are all beneficial to tech units. You're going to get a bonus which relates to tech units. That way, separatists can still have their tech bonus, but if you wanted to run a Bodhi tech deck, or if you wanted to run a Finn Rose Resistance tech deck, or whatever other tech decks you could imagine, you could still do that outside of their eras. You're not stranglehold into this specific location, okay? And there's two reasons that just like era-specific bonuses are dumb. First of all, because the era bonuses are not equally viable. You can't argue that. You just can't, okay? Separatists and Empire get HP and damage, percentage HP and damage, to all their organic and tech units, okay? That's an incredible bonus. It's incredible on all fronts, all right? Whereas you have people like Rebels who get structure, health, and duration. Like, that benefits the auto turret and the mortar turret. Are you joking me? Like, what? I mean, maybe a Bodhi's going to benefit from it, but come on, even if it benefits your map turrets, so let's say that it benefits the 3 turrets that are on the map, still, how does attack speed and health help you? It's 3 turrets on the map, whereas the Empire and Separatists, every unit they play pretty much is going to get a bonus, which is going to improve their trades, their energy management. It's going to improve their, it doesn't matter if your turrets take less damage or attack faster. I mean, it matters a bit, but it's completely offset by the far superior bonuses of Darkside. Secondly, eras don't even have equal number of cards, which makes this entire thing is just asinine to think of. From a logical perspective, how could you ever think that era bonuses are equal if you don't give the same amount of card selection to each era? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, thankfully, the new eras have better units in them for the most part, so that's why you see a lot of the new units being played. But even then, it's like, how are you supposed to utilize certain bonuses if it's like you're strangleholding players into these specific, you're trying to enforce the meta, and I talk about this in a second. But the next thing here, leaders should expand archetypes and metas, not define or restrict them. So you make more deck options viable, not less deck options non-viable. And Ray is the perfect example of doing this wrong. It's what I was referring to earlier with Dewback. Ray was the one that influenced the lack of Dewback use. Her skill is the most game-breaking skill in the game because she steals energy from the opponent and adds it to herself, which is like if you steal FO Riot troopers, you're taking away 5 energy from them, you're adding it to your own. That's a 10 energy swing. You can do that with up to 10 energy of units. That's a 20 plus energy swing. That's so ridiculous. Like, how are you supposed to recover from it? And yes, you can play around that. There, you can build tech-heavy decks to prevent, Rays, or you can wait till Ray's dead to play your strong organics. I get that. Like, I understand that. That doesn't mean that it makes any more sense for the skill to be in the game. Completely rework her skill, make it something else, or just rethink it. Because right now it's so influencing of the meta. It's what defined the tech-heavy meta. And the only thing that really slightly broke out of the tech-heavy meta is basically like strong FO units, riot troopers, and even now still everyone's using ATST, assassin droid. A lot of people still using, it's still seriously tech heavy. So yeah, expand your archetypes. Basically right now there's only one archetype really. There's dark side, you have ATST, light side you have ATAP or Bantha. And like that's the only archetype. That's the only overarching like, oh, this is an effective strategy. Like all the old metas of days gone past with like swarms and like just nothing. Why would anyone play anything else aside from that? It's like that's a poorly balanced game. If like so many of players are using the vast majority of players are using like the same 4 or 5 cards in each deck. Stop trying to force the meta. Suggestion 6. This is apparent in things like resistance. So you get these organic healing units, right? And we never use them because they're garbage units. But rather than rework those units or rethink how they function, okay, you introduce this resistance era bonus for improved leader healing. Now, that's going to help Ray on her passive. It's going to help Octu Luke when he has healers. But I mean, seriously, like you took away the damage reduction on resistance, which is easily the most important aspect about resistance prior to this update, and then you gave leader healing and additional damage to leaders on the enemy. Like what? Like what? What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop trying to force players to. And same with like rebels. Like, let's give them structure, health, and duration because no one uses auto turret or. No, the auto turret meta was boring, and it was just specifically implemented just to counter ATST. And you can't even do that anymore. It can't even really, I mean, maybe a Bodhi now. You see Bodhis with ATAP and auto turret now. But it's just like, yeah. Stop trying to force things. Just give enough viable units and the meta will branch out automatically. Archetypes will develop when more units are viable. There will still be more popular decks than none. That's always going to be the case, but at least you give some variety in there. It's better to buff underpowered units than it is to nerf overpowered units. This is just a psychology thing. Like no one likes to have their purchases devalued. So when players invest in a leader and they buy enough packs to get it to level 6 or whatever, and it's nerfed the next month, they're pissed off, and rightly so. Like, well, Snoke and Octu never should have been released in their states anyway, so it's automatically, as a developer, you're setting yourself up for a lot of really pissed off people if you're intentionally releasing overpowered units and only nerfing them when enough people complain about it. Like, it creates bad taste in the people's mouths that invest in them. And I'll be honest, the only players I've ever heard not complain about Snoke are coincidentally Snoke players. And so like I have Snoke at like level 6 or 7. Like I can't stand to use his ass. Basically, rather than release broken leaders, you release leaders that are slightly better than other leaders, okay, above average. They have some incentives and some uniqueness. Like Dryden's a perfect example. He's cool. He looks interesting. He has some interesting gameplay aspects. And he might be overpowered when he's leveled up. I don't feel like he's going... He's at least not as overpowered as some of the other leaders. But, I think he was in a good spot. Or Young Khan, similar situation. But then what you do is you buff the old units and leaders to come up and meet them. So that's how you combat. That's how you combat power creep. That's how you prevent people from being. No one's going to complain when other units like Dengar gets buffed. Of course Why would people complain about Dengar? I feel bad for the Dengar mains that have been the Cassian mains. And, well, okay, I take it back. Cassian, I never want to see in the meta again. I had enough of that during the first months. But, you know, some of these other leaders, it's like, I understand, you know, they don't need to be as good as Snoke or Octu. They just need to be better. And this goes across the board for all sorts of units that are not leaders. Rethink the paid advantage and consider undoing the card level change. So this is just like a big overarching theme. And I know that if Netmarble watches this, I know whoever does watch it is not going to have control over these big decisions like changing your monetization strategies. I get that. But like 3.0 was so heavy on the paid side. It gave perks, data cards, even new card leveling system, which I think I mentioned right here. The new card leveling system is actually not beneficial for non-paying players. Like I thought it would be. I thought the progression would be smoother, and that would mean that it would be good news for all players. It's actually not. The more that I think about it, the card level change was completely unnecessary, and it hurts things. It hurts the balance because I'll give you the best example I can, which is on my own account because it's frustrating for me, is that previously I got my first order units up to, not my first order, my Galactic Republic units up to about level 15, and a lot of the dark side players that I play at the top have max level commons, level 17. So that's a 2-level disadvantage. Previously, the stats increased 6% per level. That's a 12% disadvantage for my units. They have 12% less attack power, 12% less health. Okay? I'm fine with that. I get that. However, at the change, they increased the amount of levels, but they lowered the scaling per level. You would think, okay, that's going to balance out. It didn't, because now my units became level 19 units, and the max players became level 24 units. So that was a 5-level difference at 3.5% stat change per level, which is a 17.5% disadvantage. I went from having, against those players, a 12% disadvantage to having a 17.5% disadvantage. You can see that's almost an extra full level in the previous system. They gave max level players, really that's the only players that benefit from it, are like extreme mega wells. Now, you could argue there's going to be variable changes. If I was like level 15 commons with nearly 16, well then I would have jumped up to like 20, level 21 or 22ish, and my difference might have been slightly smaller, but it wouldn't have been. No, it wouldn't have been, because still I would have been at a 4-level disadvantage even then, which would have been 14% and 12 instead of 12%. So honestly, it benefits me when I play lower levels. So it benefits anyone that was further along the progression chart, which again is paying players. Here's the thing. The free-to-play and the pay-to-play, the spending versus non-spending, is a symbiotic relationship. It needs each other, okay? And I mean, I know Netmarble understands this. Any freemium game developer has to understand this. Free-to-play players need pay-to-play players to support the development of the game and have a game in the first place. Pay-to-play players need free-to-play players to actually play against, to make the game thriving, to utilize the advantage that they're paying for. Whales don't want to just play against whales, like, unless they're the biggest whale, I guess. But, you know, if non-spending or low-spending players are consistently undervalued, if they feel unappreciated, they're going to quit the game. And that's happening in massive numbers right now. And, you know, previously, free-to-play players had to focus on, like, one leader per faction. That's how it was. You built one deck, one leader, maybe two tops. And now you have data cards and perks, and so you have to double down on that. You probably only have 1 or 2 leaders that are even a viable level to begin with. Now you need to perk them up, and the more perk points that you utilize, and you have to disintegrate your other cards, it's like you're literally forcing people into this very specified micro niche of their decks. If they want to, let's say that some free-to-play player climbs with their deck to Grand Kyber, how are they supposed to try out another leader when all their other leaders are like level 3, you know? How are they supposed to try that out? They can't. They can't try out new cards because they're so much slower to develop and progress their cards. Now, I'm not saying that free-to-play players need like a massive increase in cards and like they just need all leaders level 8 or anything. I'm not suggesting anything like that. I am suggesting that there needs to be a little bit of hope and variability that they can utilize, and the best way to do that is to add some credit earnings systems into the game. But also, I think you should reconsider the scaling per level. It currently is 3.5%, and it's like 8 or 9%, maybe even 10% for leaders. It used to be 10%. I think it might be 8 or 9% now. I think it should be 2.5% per level on commons, rares, and commons, rare, epic, and then leaders, uniques 5 to 6%. I mean, that's probably going to be a very hard thing to try and convince them, but the point is, it's irritating. Players are quitting left and right because they're tired of these extremely unfair matchups. No one likes to just get continuously beat up on by higher level players. And I'm going to throw myself into that mix. I don't like beating up on lower level players. One of my fucking absolute biggest hates of this game is when I get matched up against a low level player and they start spamming good job to me. Like, motherfucker, you act like I wanted to play you as a level 12 player. What satisfaction could I have possibly gotten from winning you with the 12 player level advantage? That's idiotic. And well, okay, I'm not going to say idiotic. I'm sure there are players that enjoy like some cynical, like just absolute chaos destruction and just ridding the other player of any hope of win, and that's satisfying to them, and that's fine. They can get enjoyment out of whatever they want, but I would say the majority of players that I know don't enjoy that. They like, maybe perhaps they might like a slight advantage, but they certainly don't like just completely stomping. Propose solutions to improve matchmaking. So this rolls right into the last thing that I just suggested. Create an optional setting for players to enable which automatically scales your card levels down to the levels of your opponent in exchange for more rating points when you win and less points lost when you lose. Okay? So if I get that level 12 versus level 24 player, I want to check a setting which automatically shuts my turrets down to 12, puts all my commons down to whatever their top common is or whatever, and then if I win that game, I get more points than I would have won otherwise. And if I lose it, I lose less points than I would have lost. I would check that shit in an instant, and I know tons of whales or tons of spenders that would do that as well because they don't derive enjoyment out of that severe. And I'm not saying that I would always keep it on. Maybe if I needed to get some quick wins in, shoot, I turn it on. I don't care if I'm smashing on lower levels and just to try and get my wins in for the day or whatever. But I think for the majority of time, I would keep that setting on. I think it would be valuable because it does two things. It makes the experience better, the balance better. The experience of the player that's playing is going to be a lot less salty to lose to an equal level player than they are some player that's massively higher card levels than them. And two, when you're doing the matchmaking and you start out trying to find a very similar rating, and then you're extending the gap at which you can actually match up with the player, eventually you're going to run into the card level disadvantages, right? So matchmaking actually becomes worse as you extend it. The longer the duration of your queue, the worse the potential matchmaking becomes, and this actually solves that. Like I said, they're less salty if they win someone, then then they're just as joyous, and the person that lost isn't going to lose as many points anyways. Again, it would be an optional setting. There's no negative benefit to whales, but there's extreme positive benefit to free-to-play or non-spenders. Number 2, get rid of factions, allow mirror matchups. This is going back to what I said earlier. Give everyone the same set of tools. Matchmaking becomes worse if you have faction versus faction requirements because you cut your potential opponents in half, and then dark side queues are like 2 to 3 times longer, and you have faction versus faction or light versus light, dark versus dark in 3.0, but there's no mirror matchup still, which is like, it's silly because right now one of the best ways to not play against Snoke is to play as Snoke in 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. If you don't want to match Snoke anymore, just, if you can't beat him, join him. And it's such a dumb mentality. Like, instead of well, it's not a dumb mentality for the players. It's dumb that the game's built like that. There shouldn't be a setting. It should just be basically no holds barred. It's like, just allow players to play each other. And some people would argue that mirror matchups are boring. I personally feel like they're not. Like, mirror matchups are direct reflection of skill. If you have the exact same cards as your opponent and the same levels, the player that comes out the winner is going to be the player that can manage their energy the best, that makes the most efficient trades, has the best micromanagement. Like, why is it boring? It's literally, okay, it just means that you're going to identify the true skill winner in that specific match. Finally, recognize that there aren't enough players playing Star Wars Force Arena at the top tiers to create fast and fair matchmaking. And this is what I was kind of going back to at the very first point. The best method for making matchmaking better is to increase the number of players. That's literally the best solution. And Clash Royale is a perfect example of this. It has nearly instantaneous matchmaking. I've never ran into an opponent with more than like a 2 card level advantage. And they have higher scaling per level, so it's still pretty unfair to run into like a 2 level card disadvantage. But the point is, it's very fast, and there's less poor matchups because of this, just the player base. Like, they had something like 27 million players sign up for their last year's World Tournament. That's insane. Judging on some numbers that we ran, this is prior to 3.0, but there was like, I want to say like 50 to 75,000 active players that ranked in a given season. We tested it out for a few seasons. That's what it was about, 50 to 100,000, I want to say. Which is a good amount of players, don't get me wrong. It's just like, you need more, always need more to make it faster and better. Propose solutions to increase player retention. So that basically the transition is, if you want more players, make your game better as a whole. And these are suggestions to make your game better as a whole. Number 1, create a challenger tournament mode. There needs to be a challenger tournament mode for players to play in a competitive setting. Now, the card levels should be capped, not equalized like in Clash Royale. This is different than the current Force Arena setting. A card level cap is like, you max out your commons at 12, max out rares at 9, epics at 6, right? So you have to build your cards up to that first sustainable level. Now, that still gives players an incentive to grind rank, to level up their cards. It still gives players an incentive to just continue to level cards, get credits. There's still good incentives for getting them up to whatever level you choose to have your cards capped at. But it doesn't require players to shoot all the way to max, like 20 plus, to be able to compete with everyone that's in the challenge mode. It means that you're giving people an incentive to grind, but they can still compete in a relatively minimal manner. Clash Royale does this, and with the challenge modes, I was able to get my cards up to like basically the caps within a month or 2. So it's not that difficult. If you give them like 2 to 3 months, they've been playing the game, you get it up to there, that'd be perfect. There should be different crystal entry amounts with the challenge mode, and scaling prices per win and per crystal amount. Just like, it's kind of like how it's set up now with arcade mode, right? You enter crystals, you have the potential to win like a unique at the end. But I would say, even if you go one step further than that, what if you could wager more crystals on it? Like, what if you could wager 200, 300, 500 crystals for even crazier packs, like a diamond pack or something at your wins? Or what if you extended the wins so that you earned more incrementally? It's just something to think about. I'm sure there was a reason why they chose 5, because Hearthstone and Clash Royale have 12. Maybe it's just because there's less players or whatever. But one thing you need to tweak with the challenge mode is it's a poor experience to match players up back to back. And this happens a lot in 2v2. You'll match up with the same opponents over and over and over again. That's bad for player experience. It's bad for a lot of things. If all the players are putting crystals in, or even if they're not, it's bad news if they're just ruining other players' experience by continuously matching. So you should be able to match with someone and then have some type of delay, either every other game or every certain amount of minutes before you can match up against them again. And you should have an elo. So this is how all the other games do it. The more that you win, you face up and match up against more players that win, which with these other games, it means that once you get past like wins, 6, so you're 50% past the progression, you start meeting very, very good players. And maybe that wouldn't work with Force Arena. Maybe there's not enough players to queue times might be really long. I'm not sure. Rethink tactical challenges and data card quests. So both of these modes suffer from the issue of no replay value. All right. And data card quests are cool. I love the new maps. I love the new concepts. I love the new elements. The AT-AT is cool. Protecting it, destroying it. It's all cool. It's fun. But there's a lot of novelty in these events, which wears off quick. And once you're not surprised by things like the Twi'lek spawns, or they all become predictable and irrelevant. Like, you develop strategies which make the challenge mundane. For example, the AT-AT, you can destroy it before it even gets to the second turret, if you know what you're doing. You can protect it without it taking nearly any damage. You can, and this is all level 3, the hardest difficulty, which it's hard. If you don't know what you're doing, you go into it like blank. I lost the 1 versus 1 against Malo. Man, that motherfucker is strong. You have like level 18 B2s coming at you, and you have level 12 clone troopers. Like, it feels like a severe disadvantage. It's a hard data card quest. I was glad that they scaled up the difficulty to level 3 that much. But once you learn the secrets, now I can beat every data card quest in the game, and most of them I rarely even need my leader. It's just about knowing what units to run and where to place those units. That's it. And so that these things become a grind. They become, I have to go do my data card quest to get my data cards. They're not fun anymore after a while. And so my suggestion would be completely do away with these and the tactical challenges. But if you really want them in place, here's the 3 things you need to do. First of all, you need good rewards. Data cards have good rewards. Tactical challenge rewards are shit. Like, fix that immediately. A leaderboard. You need a leaderboard and competitive elements within these things. There needs to be a way to compare your score, your time, your achievements with your friends list. Friends list, whenever it comes. I know you guys are working on it. Let's see it. With your friends list and your guild, right? And so you have this additional element of, why would I replay tactical challenge? Well, I'm trying to get the fastest time in my guild, or the fastest time among my friends on this specific achievement. Things like that. Spontaneity. So the biggest issue with these, again, is it's repetitive, right? And so if everything happens the exact same way every time, there needs to be randomness in it. There needs to be units spawning in different places, attacking different times, different units, for it to really be distinguished. And even then, like, I still feel like it becomes pretty monotonous, And sometimes randomness can even really make it much more difficult to beat, which can be frustrating as well. Number 3 suggestion on user retention: rethink arcade modes. And I know there's players out there who enjoy the current arcade modes. I think the arcade modes are kind of garbage in my opinion. And I feel like if you had the challenge mode, a lot more players that enjoy arcade draft would actually just play challenge mode. I feel like that's the case. Like, arcade draft is fun, but it's also really frustrating. Like, if you play arcade draft and you don't even get to select like a support card, like, how are you supposed to win your games if you don't have a single support card or AoE selection out of your draft? It sucks. Or All Out War is a good example. Like, it has the same issues because you have your ranked levels in there. It creates frustrating feelings of poor matchmaking, unbalanced level disadvantage. Instead, what I'm thinking is like some crazy off-the-wall modes, right? Like 3 versus 3 or 4 versus 4 energy boost mode on a big map, like the 1 versus 2 map. Like, it would be super stupid and completely unbalanced, but it'd be hilarious, in my opinion. And it would be at least enjoyable for a time. I don't know how long, but it's so different from the current experiences in the game that I think it would be hilarious. Or just any type of unique modes that you could think of, like, I don't know, maybe you have just like a specific mode where you can only use certain types of cards, or all random, or your leader's randomized, or I don't know, like, and some of the current arcade rotation is kind of like that. But I guess you just give. It should be about having fun in the arcade mode rather than feeling frustrated over your matchmaking luck. Fourth suggestion, create a co-op versus AI mode. Now, if you want to really differentiate yourself from game like Clash Royale, you take advantage of the MOBA element. You create a horde mode, like Call of Duty Zombies, Gears of War horde mode. You just take the successful elements from those games. And I know you guys know how to do this because you copied so much of Clash Royale from their game and copy-pasted it into your game. Now I'll give you that you introduced this unique MOBA element. And honestly, I think Force Arena is a far superior game to Clash Royale. It's got the MOBA element. It's got a higher skill cap. It's got more interesting dynamics, in my opinion. And it's got the better IP, like Star Wars is freaking amazing IP. But it's like, why has it not, aside from the initial spike, every trend that I've ever seen is a downward spiral for Force Arena. And it makes me think, okay, well, if you really want to try and resurrect this game, because I'm questioning if this game can even be saved at this point, but assuming that it can be, and assuming Netmarble can turn things around, I think this would go a huge way to create a co-op versus AI mode. My vision of it, and I would enjoy anything as long as it was implemented correctly. You could implement it like tactical challenges and it didn't end up being shit. So there's still the possibility of screwing it up, even if you do something like this. But my vision of it is that you get to control your leaders, you get to spawn units, but you also get to build defensive buildings, like the barricades that are in the data card quests. Okay, then you can build those barricades next to each other and create kind of like a maze, right? Like the old Warcraft 3 custom maps where you have the tower defense, and you created your own little maze that units walk through, and then you attack them and spawn units on them while they're walking through this. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes you can create such an awesome defense that, like, it's impenetrable. You have this amazing maze. The units go through it forever. They get attacked by everything. They never survive it to get to the generator. So what you do is occasionally you have these boss levels, 5 to 10 levels, extremely hard bosses, and they take out your barricades. Or occasionally you spawn flying units to fly over the barricades, or special attack units to destroy the barricades. Like my example here, a super fast, high health G&K that just like zips through the middle and then blows up and destroys like half of your defense. Like, that's the point. Is there's so much that you can take from these modes. There would be so much, and I think it would be fun. I think it would be a casual and rewarding experience. And if you had a separate currency or a separate set of rewards than 1 versus 1 ranked, it could be like season credits, but it could be something as unique as like cosmetic rewards or aesthetic rewards, or even like a completely new currency which buys completely different things, or data cards. Make this data cards. Like, take what you've already done with the data card quest, make it a co-op versus AI element, and have that. I mean, here's the cool thing, is that in this co-op mode, it's the first time when whales are actually there's no worry about balance, because the game scales as the levels progress, right? It gets harder. It gets to the point where it's supposed to be impossible to beat the AI. You're supposed to lose at some point, at some level. Well, this is the one place where whales are out now actually readily welcomed, and actually you're grateful to have them on your team. I mean, how good would it feel for the max level players who are constantly ridiculed to actually go into a co-op versus AI and just have like everyone sing praise? Hallelujah, I got Shinwei on my team. Smacking up the AI all over the place with his max units. And so the point is, this co-op versus AI mode, I think I wrote it down here somewhere. The suggestions: create 3 separate distinct gameplay experiences. Okay, and I guess I'll get to that in a little bit. No, I'll talk about it right now. So these three things, you have 1 versus 1 ranked, which is the core grinder or collecting mode, and it has the most significant rewards each season, and it has the long-term feeling of progression or collection, like you're completing your collection. It's also what's applying to those to the long-term collection or mission rewards, whatever those new things are called. And then your next mode or your next experience is the 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2 challenge mode. Now that mode is the core competitive mode. It removes things like perks and data cards, and it caps the card level for a fair playing field. That's where you get the very competitively driven players to participate. And it's also where you can reward free-to-play players for being skilled at the game but not having the money to invest in it. And they can earn nice rewards from being good at the game. It doesn't have to be as good as like other things. It just needs to be worth it to invest those crystals and, win a certain amount of games. Third thing here, arcade and co-op versus AI mode. This is the casual experience, okay? They should be non-stressful, fun experiences. They should earn currencies which are different than the existing ones, so you don't... Like, I often hear a suggestion like, why don't we have an equalized card level mode? Well, you can't do that, right? And I know that, Netmarble. You can't create... I think this was a big problem with 2 versus 2 ranked previously when you could earn packs, as you were splitting this the user base up very distinctly. And you're going to be splitting the user base up. You already do with arcade modes or with, a 2 versus 2. You already do, but this is just making it very distinct experiences, and they have very distinct and separate rewards that don't conflict with each other. Fifth suggestion, acknowledge incompetent players for your mistakes. So 3.0 had a lot of, in my opinion, mistakes. Not only are there bugs, like there's bugs where you don't even get your synergy data cards when you use the synergy leader, which is frustrating. But just things like you increased the credit requirement to max out every rarity in the game. That was unnecessary, and it was frustrating, and it created this huge credit crunch, okay? And then you have the additional expenses, data card and perk upgrades, which also cost credits. And that's frustrating. You need additional credits there. And then you have these additional expenses, new deck slots, they cost crystals. New data card presets, they cost crystals. Unequipping data cards cost crystals. Like, this is so frustrating from the standpoint of a player. And honestly, it just feels like a cheap cash grab, and it's already created a lot of resentment towards Netmarble. And things like the deck slots, those were features requested from the release of the game to have a way to save your decks or have additional deck slots. And now you're charging crystals for it. And even if it's a small amount, like, it's frustrating. Why not? So this goes to my next suggestion. Monetize the game with cosmetic items and challenges. Give the features, the quality of life improvements to the community for free. Communities love quality of life improvements. We love it. We love when the game just is more convenient. But you monetize your game with things that give value to us. And I guess you could argue that deck slots give value, but it's, cosmetic items is a much better example. Character skins, weapon models, card backgrounds, leader portraits, leader insignias, guild tags, colored names. There's limitless possibilities of things that you can give away, either as rewards for like completing certain long-term missions, or you could give them away as, you could have a shop for them where you purchase things, or you could even have like the currency that's earned in the casual mode give you currency to buy these cosmetic items. That's what I said earlier. Like, you use separate currencies which still give cool stuff, and you're gonna have players mix and matching on what they're playing. It's good news for the games. The game's longevity, the user retention improves when you provide them with different enjoyable experiences and different rewards for those experiences. Also, with the challenge mode, you could wager different crystal amounts on the challenge mode entries. Your prizes increase. That allows players to basically get their rewards based on skill rather than like packs or pick a winner. And pick a winner even could be allow me to wager a certain amount of common cards on my next match. I would much rather be in control rather than have some... I won't pick a winner, people. I understand that everyone have bad games, but it's frustrating when like a deck that is far superior to another deck just loses because the player utilizing that deck was not playing very well in that game. Next suggestion, integrate the game with the community as much as possible. This is super important. There should be guild versus guild events with the rewards for participating. That gets more people into guilds. The guild rewards are already good for the guild seasons, but this guild versus guild events, it's like it's additional to that, okay? I think Galaxy of Heroes is probably the best, and I hate Galaxy of Heroes. I hate EA. I hate CG. I hate that I feel like Netmarble's moving in that direction with a lot of this update. It feels like Galaxy of Heroes 4.7, but the one thing they did right was initially the whales were all hated because all the whales were seen was in arena where it was PvP, and people didn't like being matched up against other whales in the PvP mode. But what did they do next? They introduced raids, which was a huge spike in user interaction. They introduced territory wars. They introduced guild wars. All these things were huge for them because they brought together the guild to mean more than just a place. It brought the communities together to achieve certain things. That's the same concept with like the co-op versus AI. You need things that your guilds, you encourage people to join into these communities, get connected. It's almost sad, but honestly, the only reason I still play this game is because of my guild descendants. It's the only reason, and the relationships that I formed there. Like if it wasn't for them, and that was the same case with me with Galaxy of Heroes for a long time before I quit that. It's like it was those communities that kept me there, and they're a huge user retention improver. They need to be, new players need to be pushed into these communities if they don't automatically find them or search for them themselves. And there's good ways of doing that in game, like these guild versus guild events, rewards, etc. Also, there should be in-game messages sent to players which promote the supported community tournaments. Now, this is just a personal opinion, obviously, because I participate in a lot of these tournaments and I love hosting them and I love like the community tournaments as a whole. But if you're going to support these tournaments, why not support them full force? Why not let players know by that in-game notice message that we're doing a community tournament in 2 weeks or whatever? Like, when they join these places like Reddit and Discord, YouTube, Twitch, and they start following these content creators or these people within these communities, they're much more likely to join one and actually join a guild or join something that gets them coming back, And there should be leaderboards on every game mode. 2 versus 2, 1 versus 1, challenges, co-op, everything. Because you should be able to constantly see how you compare to your friends list and your guild mates. Again, this encourages you to get other players to start playing it. It encourages interaction with other game modes. I don't know why the 2v2 leaderboard was removed. I get why the ranked aspect of it was removed and the rewards, but the leaderboard as a whole, even if it doesn't offer rewards, is a good thing. Like there's nothing. Bragging rights are a real reward, whether they influence gameplay at all. They're real and people seek after them. As silly as they would be for like a tactical challenge, people are going to try and take that number one spot on whatever tactical challenge it is. And so, every opportunity you have to get new players or even existing players more involved in the community, comparing and working with other members, it creates a far stronger unity and far longer user retention. That's pretty much it, guys. That's my summary. I know this video is super long. I don't know if Netmarble ever watches one of these things. If you do, I understand that whoever's probably watching it does not have the power to do a lot of this stuff. Please, you can contact me. You can message me. You have my information. You have my email. Hell, you even have my license somewhere. But like, just put together a decently organized presentation to explain why these things are so important. Because whoever is in charge of those things has to see the vision that the way that things are currently functioning is going to destroy this game. It has no longevity. These things should have been done months ago, and it is absolutely destroying the game right now. So, that's it for me. I'm still playing this game. I'm giving it till my victory pack runs out. I'm giving it till they introduce whatever this Super League thing is, and we'll see then if things have improved. If not, then I don't see myself being any different from any of these other massive amounts of people that are quitting the game. But if you made it to the end of this video, guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me rant. Malo, aupito. Thanks for watching. Peace.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! I hate you! You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!